The House of Representatives recently passed a measure that would hand $300 million worth of taxpayer money over to charter schools. Not only are these schools typically run by corporations that are looking to make a big profit, but they're ripe with fraud. I have Ruth Conniff, editor of Progressive Magazine, here to tell us what's happening. So Ruth, what went wrong? You've got all the Wall Street Democrats. You've got Jeb Bush telling us that charter schools are the way of the future. It's not looking like that. By the way, great article that you did here on FBI targeting these charter schools. This is a story people just need to be more aware of. Lay this story out for us a little bit.
Well, we've been following this charter school story for a while. We started a website called publicschoolshakedown.org because we have noticed over the last 10 years the expansion of charter schools. What started out as an idea to do something innovative in public education, to run little schools that might have a bilingual program, an alternative program for kids who just didn't do well in the traditional classroom, has grown into this contraption, these mega charter companies that are sweeping into states like Wisconsin and Florida and all over the country, really. And they have found a way to extract public funds that are supposed to support public education for kids, and instead are enriching the folks who are running these big charter school companies.
The easiest way to analyze really the story behind the story here is to see what Scott Walker has done. Scott Walker started attacking the public schools, not because they weren't doing a good job, but because he wanted to destroy the school teachers' unions. He wanted to take the tax base and give it to corporations rather than having that tax base go towards paying for public schools. And so we see that happening all over the country. People don't understand why this is going on. The argument is, oh, gee, these kids are going to be smarter if we do this. Teachers are going to be better. Nothing's further from the truth, is it?
Right. I mean, the problem is there's been this campaign by people like Scott Walker and right-wing ideologues at the Bradley Foundation and other right-wing groups to say public education has failed. We need to give up on the idea of having a community school paid for by tax dollars. And instead, what we need to do is siphon public funds to private interests because business does everything better. And what has happened as a result of that ideology and the growth of this industry is that there are some shady operators who have stepped in to say, sure, we'll take some public funds, we'll pay ourselves big salaries, we'll sell products to the schools or charge ourselves rent, and public funds will enrich us. So what we see now is all over the country, all different kinds of shady operators running education as a way to enrich themselves through public funds, and the FBI cracking down in state after state after state, raiding schools.
We're seeing a new story almost every couple of weeks where the FBI is barging in to a charter school, taking the computer, taking all the records, because they do that, as you know, Ruth, they do that after they already have a pretty good case. Yeah. After typically a whistleblower has come in and said, let me tell you how this charter school is stealing from taxpayers. Let me tell you how this charter school is paying their executives millions of dollars, and they're hiring teachers that aren't even certified to teach. All these stories, story after story. Lay out some of the horror stories for us.
Well, in Hartford, Connecticut, they actually finally drove a charter school out of town after they uncovered the fact that the person who ran the school was a convicted felon who had served 5 years for embezzlement and was living on the public dime in a high-end brownstone, but charging rent to tenants who he also kept living there. There are some amazing stories. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, there was a guy who's a pilot who owned an airplane company. He figured out he could run an elementary school, which was raided because it turned out that he was embezzling funds and he was using public funds to purchase airplanes in order to teach kids to fly in a flight school that was associated with this elementary school and the secondary school that he ran. I mean, there's all kinds of rackets.
Well, first, Ruth, I thought was so interesting about your story. There are many things interesting about your story. But, you almost say, okay, well, this charter school, you think small, it's just isolated, it's mom and pop over there. They want to start a little local neighborhood school. But now what you have, it is a state-to-state industry where you have these large corporations. I mean, we've got them all over Florida, for God's sakes. These corporations coming in, this isn't mom and pop. Tell us about the new corporate structure for all this.
Yeah, I mean, it's hucksterism is what it is. I have a friend actually locally who helps to run a charter school, which is what is now derisively referred to in the charter school industry as a mom and pop. It's a small alternative school for kids who were doing really poorly in high school and they needed more of an open classroom. They needed a restart really in life. So this does still exist. And I think a lot of folks, what they don't realize is that while those little charters, those little progressive ideas that are supposed to be replicated in the regular public schools still exist, they have been overwhelmed by this new model of these big mega charter school companies and their lobbyists in state capitals like here in Wisconsin. What they're saying is instead of the local public school district authorizing a charter school, we're going to take it statewide. We're going to allow ourselves to operate in every district in the state. We're going to siphon money out of every school in the state. And perhaps what we're going to run is an online program. So no bricks and mortar, no teacher salaries, no lunch lady, no sports team. Same funding though, same amount of money per student. And we just sell this online program to people and the taxpayers pay for it and the folks who run it get rich.
Plus, we're going to throw in some uncertified teachers because we don't have to pay them as much. We can pay them, just hardly anything, and they'll come in and teach even though they aren't qualified to teach. They're not certified to teach. And the other benefit that corporate America gets here is it's another attack on the unions. I mean, all of a sudden, unions have no significance because everything is chartered. I know I saw in your article you talked about Rupert Murdoch with News Corp in the relationship between ALEC and how they're bragging about, wow, this is a new money bonanza. Get involved. Go out and get involved because corporate America, you can really make a lot of money by these scams, these charter school scams. I mean, they're shameless about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really shady operators, which is why we have all of these FBI raids. But the basic model, this basic philosophy that this public institution, public education is a failure. This is their message. It's a failure. So what we need to do is open the door to all kinds of shady business deals to run their own schools. And it's really the destruction of the idea of a baseline of public education for American students. And it's led to some unbelievably lousy results.
I saw in your article where you talked about the Morning Star reporting that between 2012 and 2013, executive compensation for one of the corporations, the K-12 corporation, was about $11 million. And then in 2012, it went, right now it's $21 million is the executive compensation. In other words, that's money that's moved away from the kids. Kids aren't benefiting from that taxpayer money. The people who are benefiting are the people who are cashing in on our kids. Isn't that kind of what's happening here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's why Rupert Murdoch said it's a $500 billion sector, K-12 education in the United States alone. Well, that's the money that all of us, each individual household pools, because we believe that we should educate children. And so to look at that in aggregate and say, hey, here's a whole bunch of money that you could get your hands on and enrich yourself is a very different view of what education is all about.
Has anybody been thrown in jail yet? My prediction is there will be a good number of people thrown in jail before it's all over, but people have gone to jail already, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I think it's so important. That's why I called the FBI to ask about this pattern that we had noticed of these raids all across the country to say, is it true that you are forming a special task force the same way that the FBI decided to concentrate on the mafia and all its arms on charter schools? And what they said was, we can't tell you there's a special task force, but what we can tell you is we're working with the Department of Education and we're taking proactive steps to look at charter school fraud across the country.
All connected.
There's so much.
All connected to Wall Street, and I wish they would take that net and net some of the criminals on Wall Street because this goes all the way back to Wall Street. Ruth, as usual, great material. Just you just always have the story that we ought to be reading, and this is one of them. Thank you for joining me, okay?